I just need to make sure that the stream latency is low. Yes, the stream latency is low. We are all good. I'm sorry that the stream started late today. I didn't have power, and so I didn't have internet. I did get myself a new way to have internet, but have power, but the battery did not last longer than half an hour. So that has to be returned. Okay, so in our previous lesson we looked at our paper 1, question 1, and we were going to have we needed to create that podcast, okay? And the expectation was that you all go home and you go complete your podcast on your own, and then those who are my students, you can send me those and I will give you feedback. Those who are not my students, I will share with your friends. I just can't look at everyone's stuff, obviously. Now, today we are going to look at what I have done, and you all are going to roast it. This is fun. You guys know I love roast sessions. So you will notice that I made some intentional errors in this piece that I've written. Okay? And you're going to actually mark what I have done. Is that okay? Well, you don't really need to answer whether that's okay, just like I'm just informing you of what is happening. So let me just quickly open that up here. So we can do this in the chat. I'm just putting it in here. Okay. There we go. Okay, I'm going to read my piece to you, and I want you to give me feedback on it. Someone last week wanted to be moderator. Who was it that wanted to be moderator?
I think he was joking, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, because I was talking to Katasha, and she said, you know what? If your students want to be moderators, make them moderators. If they suck at it, just unmake them moderators. So if you want to be a moderator, I'll make you a moderator, okay? Okay, cool. So we're looking at this. The guy who wanted them to cook. Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Pepper. Welcome back to Dr. Pepper's Hot Takes. First, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Epic, for making my healthcare administration a one-stop, integrated experience, and for giving my viewers a month of free online support. Use the code PEPPER on the official website today. But what is Epic? I hear some of you ask. Epic is a software designed specifically for healthcare professionals to bring a greener, faster, better future to our daily lives. No more scattered pages and charts needing to be registered and filed in multiple locations. Epic offers seamless, centralized data capture, allowing all relevant professionals access to vital information in an instant. For me, it revolutionized the time spent being called away by nurses needing information they couldn't find, or called in by administration to redo a lost form for an insurance claim. Now I can focus on what I studied to do, saving lives. My hot take? Hospitals in the 21st century have no excuse to not modernize their medical data management. And if your hospital has not, it's time to be an agent of change. See you tomorrow, and stay spicy. So, thoughts. Let's see what thoughts you guys have. Tell me in the comments what thoughts you have on this. Did I achieve the purpose? Do I need to open the thing so you can see what the purpose was?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me just open it quickly. Okay, so I needed to, you are a doctor who has used Epic, write the text of a podcast for other doctors promoting the benefits of the new software. Okay, use 150 to 200 words. Okay, let's quickly check how many words I used, because I didn't actually check my words. 191 words. Okay, so I was within my word count. Now, things that we noted that we should do in our previous session. What were does anyone remember the things that we said we should add?
Well, I remember when we were trying to be specific to very general towards a lot of healthcare practitioners, not only doctors, because that's not what the software is for. It's for everyone in the field.
Very good. Okay. So, just give me a moment. So, and that is very true. Now, did I do that? So if we look at this, just note if you do talk out loud, your voice will be heard on the recording, hey?
It's fine, I don't really care.
Okay. So, if we look at that, we need to take note of the fact that my podcast is specifically made for doctors. So here I haven't really spoken about, I have said that the software designed specifically for healthcare professionals. I didn't say it was software designed specifically for doctors. And it has connected this idea of the nurse and the doctor both being healthcare professionals. And something else it has done, is that it has kept this idea of the audience being doctors, not by focusing on how it benefits the nurses or the administration, but by focusing on how specifically it benefits the doctors. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, now my podcast name. Welcome back to Dr. Pepper's Hot Takes. What do you guys think of that?
It's a nice play on words.
Okay, is it effective? Is it appropriate to the context?
So I definitely think that people are going to see this as a joke, because something like Dr. Pepper, people see mostly as a drink, and there's no context about like how long he's been in the business. So people will assume that this guy is just taking the piss because he's a drink.
I mean, maybe, but we also need to consider the fact that his audience is possibly listening to his podcast every day. Okay, he says he has a daily episode, so people are listening to it every day. Okay, so it would already be established who he really is. Another thing that is interesting, I thought, was the idea of having a doctor talk about hot takes, because often doctors hear people's really weird hot takes and they're like, oh my gosh, how do you come up with this stuff? my doctor friends are like sometimes very confused by the things their patients say with the hot takes their patients have on why they might be ill. And so that might be something that we could explore in our text analysis, right? How specifically did I appeal to my audience? Now, yes, I have used humor. Dr. Pepper is humor, but there are probably genuine people called Dr. Pepper, right? I think.
Yes.
And so I have used a bit of humor. I have managed to take some of Dr. Pepper's audience, the drinks audience, and add them to my audience as a doctor. And so in terms of marketing, I think it's a very good strategy, right? But like I am tooting my own horn. I'm just like, this is what I'm doing here. So we said we were going to add, so I wanted to add some kind of advert. Like some kind of thing that they get, because that's very podcasty, and also like we're advertising a product, and so usually when we're advertising a product we will have some kind of coupon code, well, discount code or something, okay? There is some kind of emotive language here with the hot take, but he's really just advertising something. And something we're also noticing... Pardon?
Would hot take be like an example of like a colloquial term, or
yes,
like one of those?
I don't know if
what I was going to say is,
yeah,
with the podcast being called Hot Takes, it gives it a more, well, it's a more relaxed feel surrounding the podcast. It's not really quite as a serious type of. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like
no,
it doesn't come across as like a very serious, like we had to talk about the medical science, this, and that. It sounds more like, here's my opinion on this, I've got some background in this, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get what you mean. Okay, so are any of you perhaps in circles that use the term hot take?
No, not really.
Is it like I don't know, is it like a thing of your generation?
Well, I suppose, remember, when you're talking about hot takes, you got to think about the friend group that you're in.
Yeah.
So for us, like, it's going to be very exaggerated example, but, you know, saying retard, like, that could be a hot take, because, you know, some people don't like it when you say that, but, like, to an edgy teenager, saying retard means absolutely nothing.
So I've got a friend who lives in the US, and they do a lot of traveling, and they do a lot of like work, they do a lot of work in like establishing what do you call it, co-ops and things like that. And they find that in these co-ops there are people who have some really weird ideas. And I mean, they have a co-op. They've been in a co-op for years. They are a group of programmers. There's probably about 40 of them, and they all have equal ownership in the business. And it's a really great idea, but like the people you come across are quite interesting sometimes. So sometimes we have calls. We call each other most Sunday nights, and then I ask them, okay, now what were the hot takes you heard from all these people this week? And sometimes you hear some really bizarre things. And then sometimes, like, my friend and I might be having a discussion about something, and both of us have, like, very controversial perspectives on the issue. And so in order to, like, lessen the blow of the controversial issue, we'll use the phrase hot take. We'll say, I just want to share my hot take on this.
It's like an icebreaker.
It's almost like an icebreaker, but saying, you know what, you don't have to take this. I know it might be a little bit controversial, but it is still worth considering. And so here I feel like what I've done here, I felt like personally, I don't know if this is necessarily true. Someone said hot takes, you can also be referring a review on something very popular, depending on the audience. Yes, that could also be that. And so something I felt personally was that hot takes is more related to people like over the age of like 25 maybe. I don't often hear younger people use it. Like my friends who are in their 30s use it a lot. And so I feel like doctors are very much in that age bracket. You know what I mean? And so talking about hot takes is also appealing to that age bracket of over 30. But it's also not appealing to an age bracket of like over 60 necessarily, because is it going to be easy to get an over 60-year-old to want to use this new software? And so these are all things worth looking at. Are you all with me? So now these are the things that we can look at when we're analyzing, when we're doing our analysis. I see someone said here, we say controversial opinion a lot more. Yes, that's actually a lot of what I've heard from younger people. I work with younger people. It's my vibe. It's what I do with my life. So that is definitely a thing. Now, I just wanted to make a note here that I say, see you tomorrow and stay spicy. Okay, so here what I've done is I've told them when my next episode is going to be, and I have got this hot takes is related to the stay spicy Dr. Pepper. So pepper, hot takes, spicy, all of these words are related. And what do we call it when all of these words are related?
Lexical field.
Yes, so it's a lexical field. So now pepper is like food, but it's also like spicy and hot. And now we've got the term hot takes, and then we've got this word spicy. So I'm really carrying that through. Do you see that? Now we also see that it is very short and sweet. Now, what is the benefit of it being so short and sweet? Does it achieve the purpose of the assignment?
I would say no.
Okay.
I was actually just writing this out now while you were like talking. But for me, the beginning part, the way it starts with that introduction, it kind of removes that sincerity from Dr. Pepper. Like, it doesn't feel like Dr. Pepper's own opinion, because he's disclosing the fact that it's sponsored first, which means he like, it feels more like a chore to him than an actual, his own opinion. I know that's just how I feel when I'm reading the text.
I totally get that, and I actually did that intentionally, because we have this whole article, okay? And we need to take this article and interpret this article with an understanding that he has been using this software for a bit, and so he might not actually think that it's that great. Okay? But he's advertising it nevertheless because he is getting some perks. And so my perspective that I came from is, this podcaster is getting perks from this. And by getting perks, he is like, it adds to the general idea of like, personally, I felt that this doctor who has used Epic but is promoting the benefits of the new software, I kind of took the stance of the doctor being a little bit dodge. You with me?
I mean, yeah, his name's Dr. Pepper.
Okay, so someone said, my question is, was this podcast just an advert, almost because you said the introduction, then you talk about the sponsor, then you end. So then is the podcast just talking about sponsors every episode? So I don't know, do any of you listen to podcasts?
Very rarely.
Okay, are podcasts a thing for you all? Okay. So you get different types of podcasts, and it's difficult. It was a difficult question. Personally, I found it quite challenging because I was like, okay, now what are they expecting? What are they expecting when they talk about a podcast? Because podcasts are very rarely actually mentioned in your syllabus or anything like that. And so what are they expecting? Are they expecting like a transcript? Are they expecting more like a speech type of thing? Are they expecting like an interview type of thing? So I considered the fact that I've got 200 words. So an interview, I wouldn't really be able to say much in an interview, right? I also thought about the fact that podcasters like things to be about them. So an interview of 200 words where we ask someone a question and they need to tell us what Epic is does not give the podcasters center stage in their podcast. And let's be real, people listen to podcasters because they dig the guru. Okay? Like, it's not always the vibe, but so they're discussions or interviews on specific topics. Okay? Now, I have I know a podcast. I know a couple of podcasts where it's just one person. So they're actually yoga podcasts, but they talk about the yogic laws and things like that. I was really into that for a while. And they talk about the yogic laws and things like that. And it's more like teachery. Okay? And so, but these podcasts are sometimes like 2 minutes long where they just discuss one specific issue and they just explain that issue. Now, in 200 words, yes?
So, I mean, this might be like a little bit out there. So is it basically like a videoized blog post almost in that kind of saying?
Some of them are, yeah. That is.
Would it be an informal writing?
Okay, so.
Or would you?
Let's actually look here. So, Heaven on Earth Memes says those are less podcasts and more audio tutorials. So, let's see, what is the definition of a podcast? Because maybe I'm wrong. The examiner's report wasn't clear on this. A digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or mobile device, typically available as a series, new installments of which can be received by subscribers automatically. Let's see if there's more. Podcasts are digital audio content distributed over the internet using these services. Okay, so it's basically just about your distribution method. A talk radio series on demand.
I wouldn't say on demand.
Why do you mean? Why is it not on demand?
Because I've seen many podcasts, not many, I shouldn't say many, I don't have that much experience, but a lot of podcasts, like, they aren't very successful and there's usually very little interest in them.
No, but do you know what on demand means?
It's not what you mean.
On demand means that you can go back to it whenever you can go look at it whenever you want.
So I did business before coming here, sorry.
That's okay. I think you meant in demand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. But thanks, I didn't know that, so.
So the main purpose, entertain its audience, hear updates and breakdowns of current events. So I don't think that a podcast necessarily has to be a discussion with multiple people or even an interview. However, I don't think that it is not that. So one of my favorite podcasts is called DBT and Me. So DBT and Me is Dialectical Behavioral Therapy and Me. And it's these two hosts and they're constantly having discussions and it's really great. And so all of these things, you need to decide who your audience is, what you want to achieve. So in terms of mine, I was going for, in terms of purpose, I was going, and tone, I was going for more of like an entertaining tone in the way that I wrote, how in my style, okay? So my hot take, that type of stuff. And then it's time to be an agent of change. All of these things add to my style, okay? However, my audience, my purpose would define which doctors listen to my podcast, right? So if I look at my purpose, if my purpose is going to be something like, let me think. My purpose here was specifically to get people to sign up for Epic. Okay? Why? Because I had a monetary interest in it. Okay? So maybe I'm using some kind of stereotype, but there are stereotypes that say that doctors are greedy people, which is not true. I do not think any stereotype is true. There might be some true ideas in a stereotype, but a stereotype itself is not true. So I have used the idea of both the podcaster and the doctor just wanting some money, wanting some extra money. And I've really carried this through in my piece. And I've interpreted my doctor to be someone who is kind of a little bit dodge. Okay, so just give me a moment. I just need to ask for some water. Okay, so now our next assignment, which we're going to focus on for a bit here, is compare your podcast with the article, analyzing form, structure, and language. Okay, this is perhaps a little bit more challenging. Okay, however, when we looked at our previous when we did the work the other day, we went through a couple of elements of what we can see in form, structure, and language, and how they relate. Now, we're going to do a bit of a brainstorming session. Hopefully you guys have like brain capacity for this right now.
Well, sorry, completely off topic from the brainstorming session. Why didn't you put the thing at the top that like use code Pepper? Why didn't you put Pepper in quotation marks? I mean in the inverted commas.
I didn't. It wasn't really a specific choice. It was just a stylistic choice. I just honestly didn't think of it, to be honest. Should I say honest one more time, just for extra effect? You've got some triadic
Honestly?
structures. So I didn't think of it. You can say use code pepper, and that would be fine. But it depends how tech savvy the person is, because the person listening to the podcast.
Oh no. So like I didn't actually think that deeply. No, I can't use my brain like that.
Okay.
But no, the reason why it's like your actual linguistic choice. I thought you had to put inverted commas into something like that because it's not really. It's not actually related to
you are making a reference to something, and so I mean you can or you can't. At our GCSE level, it's all about absolutely do this, do that. But when we know the rules of English, we can break them. Of language, of any language, we can break them. Now, don't take creative license wherever you want. And some people, I don't know, maybe a Cambridge marker would come to me and say, you know what, I think you should have put inverted commas. And so, yeah, I don't think I need inverted commas there, but I can put there, and strictly speaking, probably should. I just know generally in terms of how things are on the internet, we say use the code pepper and we don't put it in inverted commas because we always have those people who are not tech savvy and will use the inverted commas in their code.
Oh, so you can actually use that in your analysis point later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go with that?
Yeah. I mean, it was more just like a 3 a.m. moment. That's the best way I can describe it.
Okay. So, and also I just wanted to tell you that I literally gave myself 15 minutes to write this. Okay? I did not correct it. I wrote it in 15 minutes and that was that. So I was looking to have you tell me this was a problem or this was a problem. The reason that I'm able to come up with a reason why I did that was because you all know that I'm really good at thinking on my feet. So because I'm good at thinking on my feet, I can think of reasons why I do things. And this is a great part of this question because I can think on my feet and I can do things. I'm going to give anyone with the link access to comment on this piece, okay? And you guys can add your comments to this. I'm not going to give you access to edit it because that gives access to trolls and things. And then after the lesson, I'm going to remove access to comment and just give it viewer access, okay? Okay, so if we take our question, we need to compare your podcast with the article analyzing form, structure, and language. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of notes here. Okay, so what do we mean when we say compare? So often what my students do when they're not quite sure what's expected of them is they will do a full analysis of the article and then a full analysis of the podcast, and they won't really be related. But it needs to be comparative, okay? Now, what do you think it means for things to be comparative? What does that even mean?
I can be that guy, right? They relate to each other.
Oh, wow, wonderful.
As simple as possible.
So what we're going to be looking at is in what ways, So we're going to look at similarities and differences. Okay? Now, we are going to be looking at similarities and differences when we're looking at form, structure, and language. I hope we all at this point know what form, structure, and language are. So form is related to what are the general conventions of this text? How is this text put together? And like, how is it? What is the makeup of this piece? Okay, so it is a podcast, and this is going to be impacted, like all of this is going to be impacted by our audience and purpose. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to understand what is the audience, who is the audience of each piece, and what is the purpose. Yes?
Can we comment?
Yeah.
Or must we say?
You can comment or say. I will be reading the comments out loud as you guys comment.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So I just want to say here, who is the audience of each piece and what is the purpose of each piece? And then from there, we look at, okay, now how does the audience, or how is the audience defined by the purpose, right? This is all the stuff I want you to think about. These, if I mark your assignments, you will see I leave so many comments about these topics because you need to understand audience and purpose in order to really figure out why. Because analyzing is not just saying that this has been used. That is just, what do I call it? What do we all call it? It's called feature spotting. So telling me they use short sentences or they use long sentences. Okay? Saying something like, the text is written in paragraphs for the audience to easily understand. Never has a sentence made me more depressed than that specific sentence. Okay. It lacks clarity, it lacks specificity. For the article, it is the doctors specifically, whereas the podcast is targeted at medical practitioners. But is it? So if we look at our assignment, it says you are a doctor, write a podcast for other doctors. So no, I would disagree with you.
But the text that we just read,
yeah,
I would say that I couldn't really tell much that it was just doctors because he was talking about nurses and in a very general way. So I don't really get I know feeling isn't the correct word, but
yeah,
I get the feeling that it isn't really about the doctors.
Okay, so in paragraph 3 here, well, yeah, so we've got just what is Epic, okay? Then we've got what it did for him as a doctor, and then now I can focus on what I studied to do, saving lives. So this is specifically how it affected him as a doctor. And I don't know if you know healthcare professionals, but often pharmacists are not big fans of doctors. My pharmacist friends, I've got one friend who's a clinical pharmacist who gets very irritated with the doctors at the hospital he works at because they do not keep up to date on the things they should be reading, and he constantly has to correct mistakes. And so he doesn't like that. He has also, and my nurse friends have called the doctors that they work with very arrogant. And so, but this is knowledge that I have personally. So this does include my personal perspective here. I personally don't think that a nurse is going to be reading the hot takes of Dr. Pepper. But I mean, they might. But if I send a podcast like this to my pharmacist friend, he will say, "Please don't send me like that."
No. But what I'm trying to say is, I cannot see that this podcast is more specific than the article that I read. Okay. Because the article goes in depth because it's allowed to go in depth. But like we get a little bit more jargon. We get a lot more like personal experience with the technology. So I feel that in terms of audience, like you can tell that this guy is speaking about doctors, speaking about his experience as a doctor.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. That's a very good point. The article has more jargon and so is more closely related to an audience of doctors. Okay. So we look at that. Then I just want to look at this. So how is the audience defined by the purpose? So if I look at my purpose here, it is a little bit difficult because are the doctors going to be the ones that are changing are bringing health changes in healthcare administration to the hospital? Or is it going to be the administration staff? Who is it going to be?
The administration staff.
So if I'm writing this article and I'm advertising at the beginning, this podcast, and I'm advertising at the beginning of my podcast, it's really the administration staff that want to use this, not so much the doctors. You with me?
Yes, but would you not say that if more doctors are aware of the software and its pros and cons, would you not say that they have an influence on the administration by saying, "Oh, look at this," like maybe in a general meeting?
I think they would have an influence, yes. However, this is very advertising. I don't know, advertising is not quite a word, but this is very advertising. And because it is so advertising, is it really that?
No,
I don't know. Like I feel like in terms of my purpose, I feel like my purpose doesn't quite match my audience. So then I need to ask myself, okay, so now I've already written this thing. I'm not going to rewrite it. Okay, so I'm in my exam. Now I have to come up with some reason that I have done this. Okay? Make up a reason. Honestly, make up a reason. Pretend it was your plan all along. This is the number one thing I can teach you. I had one student last year who sat in her AS exam and just kept hearing my voice saying, "If you don't know, make it up." Okay. Now, don't make up everything, but like, at this point, you have done enough critical thinking to be able to think your way through a topic, right? So I can say, okay, so my piece, my podcast is an advert or contains conventions which advertise to the audience, since the purpose is to get more people using Epic. In the podcast, I act as a representative. My audience is mostly doctors, but I have an awareness that doctors may forward it on to administrative staff. And I have thus made more accessible to the article. Aims to provide a more balanced view of the software, as the writer does not gain anything from an inaccurate description.
So, I mean, from this comparison that you gave, would you say, I mean, I want to say that it's a thing of form and language.
Yes.
It's a comparison of form and language. See, I don't know how, but I always make things into lists, right? So
yeah.
It has to be only form or only language. I didn't think you could mix and mash both of them.
Honestly, the students who do the best do not do this thing where they group all the form and then group all the structure and then group all the language. They group concepts, and it's like a Venn diagram. Form, structure, and language have overlaps. And we need to be aware of those overlaps. So this, you see how I haven't just explored the podcast and I haven't just explored the article, but I have explored both. Now, I can actually elaborate on both of these. Now, here, conventions which advertise. Now, I'm going to just put this in square brackets, all the things we should add. Here, we should probably add specific instances. Okay? And then we can actually say here how these instances achieved this purpose. Okay? So these are the elements that I'm going to be looking for. And then I'm going to talk here about what language or structural devices I used to do this. Okay? Do you see how I can always add I have this idea. I'm a very big idea person. Okay? So I think in big ideas. So I don't necessarily think of all the specific details as I go. So this is why, for me personally, planning is very important. If I do not plan a piece, it sucks. And yeah, I'm very grateful that I don't have to sit an AS exam and plan something like this in literally like 10 minutes. Okay, I'm grateful. So the article aims to provide a more balanced view of the software. And then I can say what language and structural features it uses. As the writer does not gain anything from an inaccurate description.
Sorry, you'll see in the chat that I'm also writing, but I haven't finished it yet, so don't start until...
Perfect.
Because I ran out of the word gap.
Cool, just tell me when you're done, okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay, but are you guys seeing how this all works together? And this is an example of how we can... So obviously you add in this information, but this is an example of a paragraph in your comparative analysis. Now, often what I see in a comparative analysis is your paragraphs do not actually explore the issue. They will point out the issue, they will point out the language feature, but they will not analyze it. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So be careful to analyze instead of just identify. Okay. So that is a very, very important point. Now, how long should this be? How long do you all think this should be?
About 400 to 600 words.
I think that might be a good length. There's no like perfect length for this to be. And like, I don't want to say, okay, it should be this long because it might need to be a little bit shorter. Or it might need to be a little bit longer. Your time constraints, all of that plays a role. I can say the better planning you do, the shorter it has to be because the more concisely you will be able to write. Okay? In terms of structure, make it easy to follow. Like, actually think about the fact that someone is going to have to sit and follow this thing that you are writing, which makes so little sense at times. They don't want to reread your piece multiple times, your analysis multiple times. Tell them clearly what you are talking about. Instead of saying on line 19 and not using the reference, just reference what you're talking about. Saying on line 19 takes as much time as just quoting the piece you're talking about. Now, when we're talking about quotations, I just want to say quotations need to be embedded. If you do not know what that means, please go find out what that means. I do not have time to teach you about embedding quotations. They need to be embedded. As well as being embedded, they need to be relevant. They need to be connected to a point that you are making. And they count as evidence of a point you have made. You then need to analyze the quotes to explain how it relates to what you are saying. Now, one more thing that I want to say on this point, when you have a quotation, you need to be aware that everything you say is, okay, so when you're analyzing a text, so just, let me just hold on to this thought first. When you're analyzing a text, everything you say, everything that is in the text is both looking at, is in within that paragraph, but it is also within the larger text. And we need to have an understanding of not just how it fits into that paragraph, but how it fits into the larger text. Okay. Are you ready for me to read yours, the random nerd?
Yeah, I am.
The doctor in the article is more personalized, as we have a rough idea of how old he is and what he has gone through in his life and how this has shaped his opinion of Epic. Whereas the podcast seems very distant, as there is no mention of minor or major problems with day-to-day activities. So this shows the podcast conventions as one of the features of the podcast is a parasocial relationship with the reviewer and the podcaster. I like that idea. If you can explore that further. Okay, tell me why. Why would the podcast want that parasocial relationship with the viewer, and how does it add to the purpose? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So many English teachers, I almost feel like AS English is a little bit gate kept. I don't know why, but if you go look for information on AS English, you'll find very little, especially this 9093 exam online, because people don't want to share the information for some reason. And so you have very few content creators who talk about it. And I don't know why, but the things that I have watched, so I haven't seen, obviously, a lot of teachers talk about their text analysis, but the things that I have seen, I often see that they don't have such a focus on purpose. And the reason, you'll notice I'm very big on purpose. And the reason I have this focus on purpose is not just because it meets the requirements of the text or whatever, but when you are focused on purpose, then it makes sure that you are clear and you can clearly understand the text. So many people get ungraded because they do not understand the text. If you understand the text, you get better marks. Now, to understand the text better, not just in terms of your explanations, but in terms of actually for yourself, you need to have an understanding of audience and purpose and why things are done for a specific audience and for a and how does that all relate to purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that we were going to do an hour and a half today, but I do have another 2 hours of electricity left for the day before my power goes off at 4 o'clock and comes on again at 8 o'clock tonight. So can you all finish, write this analysis before our next live stream? The live stream schedule you can find on my Facebook page. Could you go check when our next live stream is? I think it's on Wednesday. Yes. Okay, our next live stream is on Wednesday. I'm not totally sure about the time. You can go check my Facebook page. Okay. I will see you guys then. If you do have any questions, please ask. I'm quickly going to answer these last questions that are coming through. The target group is kept to the general idea of the doctor's age range. The purpose is shifted to a more understanding version rather than just an advert podcast. The podcaster wants this parasocial relationship because if he wants to maliciously advertise, it will be harder on him if it was a normal face-to-face relationship, as there is a face on the view. That's an interesting idea. This stream was... I'm very glad that it was easy to understand for your physics-based brain. Wonderful. Okay. I will see you all in our next stream. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.